Well, I became interested in community development back in the early 70s, and I was given the opportunity to do some study at the Institute of Technology, SATE in South Australia, through the Aboriginal Task Force. And I was lucky to be sponsored by Community Welfare, together with AB Study, to make it easy for me to live. And on completion of obtaining my community development certificate plus my associate diploma in social work, I went back to community welfare in Perth, and in 1976 I commenced working with the fringe dwellers in Midland. It was my first approach to community development, and I assisted them for 2 years in giving them an opportunity to gain empowerment, to look for a future for themselves in terms of better accommodation and a future for their children outside of the fringe dweller camps in the Midland area. I was in charge of a project that was fostered by the state government through community welfare that allowed me to work with each individual camp to come together in looking at all aspects of selection of land and agreeing on those issues, agreeing on house design. It took many, many meetings. It wasn't easy. And I saw it up to the stage of where the people were ready to move into their accommodation. And then I took a backward step and allowed somebody else to come in to take the next major step with the group. I really think there was major development taking place in the Swan Valley area. Those people that were in the fringe dweller camps had previously gained employment yearly on vineyards. That employment had diminished, and people didn't return back to their homelands of Mora, Calabaran and those places. They opted to stay in the Swan Valley area for a number of different reasons, and they stayed in real third world conditions where there was no running water, no services at all, no sanitary services, but they lived happily in that environment, and they were collectively supportive of one another in that. I was able to inform them of options for lifestyle, and during the next 2 years we looked at what was going to be their next step. I sort of empowered them with ideas, information and everything else that goes with community development. They made their own decisions, and working in with the state government, they created Kalakabadi Village. That was my introduction to community development. I then transferred through community welfare to Halls Creek, and worked with the Homeland Movement, which had just begun. This is back in 1980. The Homeland Movement was where people who had previously lived in their traditional country moved into Halls Creek for a variety of reasons, mainly because the employment on stations had diminished, and stations didn't want to support them anymore anyhow. They came into Halls Creek, became very disillusioned with town life. Their children weren't coping with the town life environments, and the old traditional people wanted to move back to their homelands. They felt a strong desire to return to country, and they were looking for people like myself and others to assist them in making a true stance, moving back to their homelands and being given an opportunity to get their resources together. They were fun times in those days. They were really good community development days, pretty raw, where you had to cut water, cut tucker. People lived in tents, but they were all happy in that arrangement. Which today, now, they've all got their own homes built on their traditional lands and got their own community stores, schools, very much more developed now in a very short period of time of 20 years.